Yeah, I think there's a problem with a lot of parts of the population feeling disconnected from those in positions of power, from institutions, from establishment, be it the police, be it local authorities, be it politicians. But I think there's a particular frustration amongst young people that their voice isn't listened to, that they don't have as much of an influence on their local community as they would like and as they actually deserve. There were good reasons why young people in certain parts of the country should feel disgruntled, should feel they're getting a poor deal, should feel they might be a bit detached. Obviously what's going on in the economy is hitting young people harder than most other parts of the population. That is no excuse, and it was certainly not a trigger for the vast majority of decent law-abiding young people to take to the streets for lawless criminal activity. So it's a really complicated, I think, formula behind what actually happened, but this is not young people demonstrating about what was happening to young people. Yeah. I think that's a cause of frustration. Yeah. Young people, more than ever, need to have decent education, need to have the basics to be able to get onto a good job and hold down a decent job. And we're not just competing these days with other young people from down the road or the next door borough or the other end of the country. We're competing in a global market against other people, particularly in Far Eastern economies, where the standards of education have been rising far faster than ours. And there are still too many young people in this country who are leaving school without even the basic numeracy and literacy skills which you need to hold down any job, wherever you may be. And that's why the government's trying to do so much to help those who have fallen behind in schools catch up so that they've got the basics when they're leaving school. That's a source of frustration for people. It's not an excuse to engage in criminal activity. And people who assume that if you're poorly educated, that if you've missed out you're going to take to the streets and get involved in criminal activity are wrong. That is a bad association, and again only helps all the stereotypes and the negative images we see in the media about young people, which do so much damage. I think there were different causes for people flaring up in different places. I think there was a lot of copycat behaviour going on, but at its heart there were clearly a lot of people intent on criminal behaviour, and that's why most of the people who were prosecuted had some previous form in terms of getting in trouble with the law anyway. And the riots weren't one event. It was different forms of people taking to the streets in different parts of the country. And let's remember that only a small part of those people who then were charged and brought to court were actually young people as well. And yet it was portrayed by the media as teenagers in their masses taking to the streets, which actually it wasn't. And again, it was a case of young people being given a bad name when absolutely it wasn't justified. I've always been a big advocate of making sure that young people have a vehicle to get their voice heard, that they have access to the local town hall and can sit alongside people in a position of power and be listened to and taken seriously.
I definitely agree with that, as I've been to one of the events you've co-hosted.
Yeah. I think we've got some really good examples going up and down the country, as I often do, of where local authorities take young people seriously and value them, and they have a place at the top table alongside everybody else. And I could give you examples of cities like Sheffield, which I think is a really interesting model, where they took young people seriously a long time ago. And they've got something called Sheffield Futures, which brings together all the different youth voices, with youth workers, with United Kingdom Youth Parliament members, youth cabinet members and others. And they work with all the local agencies, not just the local council, but with the local police, with health service, with education and others. And it's a really good feel about it. And because of that, young people in Sheffield are doing some fantastic things that get recognised. And I think that is not a coincidence that when the riots happened last summer, one of the places where there were no troubles was Sheffield. they didn't have the sorts of problems of other places in the country. And I think there's a lot to do with really engaging people and having them as part, at the centre of the local authorities' approach.